We get familiar with everyday nation through its culture. Culture is the touchstone of any nation. Today we'll talk about literary translation. Once Joseph Stalin said to his colleagues in 1939, there is a Ukrainian poet whose name is Mykola Bazhan. I heard he made a perfect translation of a work by classic Georgian poet Shota Rustaveli. I propose to award him with the Order of Lenin. And Stalin himself put down the name of the Ukrainian poet in his list for awards. Of course, all agreed with the dictator. Bazhan's translation of The Knight in the Panther's Skin was good indeed and is considered to be one of the best ever done.
И фактически перевод этой поэмы спас и жизнь самому.
This translation of the poem saved his life. It was the time of mass repressions of Ukrainian intellectuals in the mid-1930s. Bazhan was in danger as he was closely watched by the NKVD.
Бажана в НКВД с середины 30-х было уже сформировано дело.
So Bazhan was conferred the Order of Lenin instead of imprisonment. At the age of 30, he became one of the best poets of Ukraine. He was fortunate to have good luck as he was one of few representatives of Ukrainian culture to survive the mass repressions of 1934-39. Later on, in the late 1950s, he became editor-in-chief of the Ukrainian Soviet Encyclopedia. Mykola Bazhan tried to pay back the people who suffered instead of him and help the new generation get some idea of representatives from the Ukrainian Renaissance that were killed by that regime.
Последних лет своей жизни были посвящены этой напряженной и этой каторжной работе.
The last 25 years of his life were spent in hard labor. As Mykola Zhelansky said about that period of his life, Bazhan wasn't just an editor-in-chief, he was responsible for articles and illustrations and gave permission for their publishing. During Bazhan's work at his post, 130 volunteers of encyclopedic, scientific and lexical books were published.
Было издано более 130 томов энциклопедической, науковой и словарной литературы.
Speaking about literary translations in Ukraine, its best period was at the beginning of an early 1930s. Ukrainian writers were really successful in this sphere. It was the time of mass repressions of Ukrainian intelligentsia. Mykola Bazhan was held up to shame as a Ukrainian nationalist. Criminal proceedings 1377 on belonging to Ukrainian military organization were instituted against him by the NKVD. His close associates were arrested and exiled. He had nothing to do but refuse from writing poems and turn to literary translation of classics. He was really fond of making literary translations. He always sought perfection in his translations. Even in his translations of The Knight in the Panther's Skin, Bazhan didn't stop making corrections to improve every next edition of his translation of the poem.
Специалисты оценивают перевод достаточно высоко.
Professionals highly appraised this translation. They said Bazhan succeeded to reproduce even the melodics of Rustaveli. He did his translation in the form of 4 stanzas, just as it was written in its original form.
То есть в форме шаири, в которой писалась поэма. И когда попервах Бажан читал...
He even read some fragments of translation to Georgian people who confessed they could hear the voice of Rustaveli in them.
Слышался голос Шота Руставели.
Rustaveli was translated by many poets, Russians, Belarusians, and Azerbaijanians. In the period of Stalin's regime, many poets showed particular interest in doing translations of Georgian literature.
Но русские переводы оценивались, особенно Бальмонта, как свободные переводы.
However, some Russian translations were a rather kind of free translation, like the one made by Balmont. Meanwhile, Bazhan's translation was precise and perfect.
То есть практически Бажана оценивают как виртуоза украинского языка.
He is considered to be virtuoso of the Ukrainian language. He conveyed all nuances of the complicated poem The Knight in the Panther's Skin.
Как поэма «Витязь в тигровой шкуре».
Bazhan was truly a master of translations. He translated from 13 languages. He published 4 volumes of translated poems of authors of 13 countries of the world.
Mykola Bazhan свободно владел польским языком.
He spoke fluent Polish, and due to his passion for detective novels, he learned German.
Говоря о славянских языках, ясно, что он переводил это все самостоятельно.
He translates from Slavic languages as well as from Italian, Georgian, and Uzbek.
Грузинский вначале, тот же узбекский. Естественно, переводил он по подстрочникам.
He considered Georgia his second motherland. He often visited this country and had many friends there. When he chaired the Union of Ukrainian Writers in 1949, he wanted to maintain creative ties with writers of other republics.
Переводил Бажан и современных ему грузинских писателей.
He also translated modern Georgian writers. He even received the knight in Panther's skin in an engraved cover as a gift from Georgian painter Irakli Ochiruri, who made the cover.
Но одна из них – это поэма «Витязь в тигровой шкуре» Шота Руставели в таком чеканном переплете, в чеканной обложке, который сделал грузинский художник, чеканщик Ираклий Очиаури.
Like no one else, Mykola Bazhan greatly contributed to the popularization of both classical and modern Georgian literature. It is a pity, but over the past 2 years, the translations by Bazhan have been withdrawn from school curricula of Ukrainian students, and his creativity, not to mention. It's a pity, but over the past 2 years, the translations by Bazhan have been withdrawn from school curricula of Ukrainian students, and his creativity, not to mention his original works and even his translations, are today unfortunately not learned in schools.
А даже и переводы Бажана там, к сожалению, не изучаются сейчас.
Today, among the visitors of the Bazhan Kyiv Memorial Museum, there are many people interested in Muslim culture, in particular lovers of Uzbek poet Alisher Naboy, whose works were also translated by Mykola Bazhan. Bazhan is a master and avant-garde writer of the 20th century. Bazhan brilliantly translated Prashad and Shirin, a poem by Alisher Naboy. The talents of both these national poets are expressed in their original works as well as in their translations. Compatriots of Naboy, representatives of the Uzbek diaspora, Orientalists and museum officers share their impressions and even show their deep academic interest in the masterpieces of Oriental culture.
Висять і донині просто в зв'язку з сьогоднішнім заходом ми виділили ці два рукописи. Вони приваблювали увагу багатьох. Ну, по-перше, ви знаєте, що кожна мініатюра
Он Божья тень на земле и должен, как сам Аллах.
Filmmakers were also interested in the personality of Naboy. A Tashkent film studio made a film about him in 1947. The 575th anniversary of the birth of Alisher Naboy is a significant event in the world culture because his universal and philosophical ideas are still high relevance to this day.
Я буду рассказывать о жизни Алишера Наваи, коротко.
I will acquaint the audience with the biography of Naboy. I will also briefly tell you what Prahad and Shirin is about. In Soviet times, people thought it was a love story.
Это просто любовная история. На самом деле это абсолютно не так, и там.
But in fact, it is a philosophical poem with a very deep meaning. It calls people to go beyond one's own being and to expand the horizons of one's consciousness.
Собственного бытия, расширить свое сознание, погрузиться в абсолют и так далее.
Юрий Косенко – один из деятелей, который действительно поддерживает нас в этих проектах.
Yuri Kosenko is one of the activists who help us to propagandize Oriental culture, literature and translations.
Проводить такие вот культурные мероприятия, чтобы рассказывать об этом, рассказывать людям, показывать, что на самом деле, то есть между нами нету таких больших различий, больших барьеров, да. То есть единственное, нам стоит делать шаг друг к другу, узнавать друг друга.
We should make a step towards each other and to learn from one another. Mykola Bazhan is one of the Ukrainian poets who contributed much to make Islamic culture known to other nations of the world, including people of Ukraine and Russia.
Мог охватить и, скажем так, исламский мир, исламскую культуру и представить ее на украинском, на русском языке.
But do people of the Islamic world, at least in republics of the former Soviet Union, have enough knowledge of Ukrainian culture and literature?
В Узбекистане существует, по крайней мере, это не один том избранных произведений Тараса Шевченко.
In Uzbekistan, they have a lot of translated works written by Ukrainian poets Taras Shevchenko, Lesa Ukrainka and Ivan Franko. They were translated long ago.
Довольно давно. Конечно, это нужно, потому что Узбекистан — это и наш партнер в торгово-экономическом отношении, и культура очень древняя.
Uzbekistan is our old trading partner. Many people since their childhood know Uzbek people as those who make shawarma or sell fruits in open-air
И
markets.
создается впечатление, вот это и есть узбекская культура. На самом деле это древнейший народ с богатейшей культурой, и изучать ее очень важно.
But these people belong to a great nation that has a very old and rich culture. We need to gain more knowledge of each other's cultures. Their country was in fact a colony of Russia, just like we were at that time.
Государство, которое так же, как и Узбекистан, было по сути колонией России и испытывало гнет империализма.
На наш взгляд, в Украине очень мало развит этот дискурс.
We think Ukraine has weak cultural ties with Uzbekistan. You should talk more about the common history of our nations, of things that unite Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians, or tell about one renowned Islamic figure who was born in Ukraine.
Высказывались и которые, скажем, имеют работы по этой теме. Есть очень известные во всем мире, скажем так, мусульманские деятели, рожденные здесь, в Украине.
Unfortunately, very few people know about him in Ukraine. We hope our center will help enhance our cooperation in the cultural sphere.
Надеемся, что наша деятельность будет способствовать развитию.
Mykola Bazhan always advocated the idea of the unity and creative cooperation of different cultures. He wanted to popularize Ukrainian literature in the West. He also translated Sartre, Nathalie Sarraute, and others. We can enjoy his Ukrainian translations of Rilke, the stage production of The Tempest by Shakespeare in Bazhan's translation at the Ivan Franko Theatre in Kiev. Bazhan loved Italy. In the late 1950s, Italians created the European Union of Writers. Its director was an Italian writer. There were two deputy directors. One of them represented Eastern Europe and the other Western Europe.
Так вот, от Востока был избран Mykola Bazhan.
Bazhan was nominated to this post as Eastern Europe representative. He enjoyed great respect among his foreign colleagues. He often visited Italy. Bazhan traveled a lot around this beautiful country, visited many places there, and was quite familiar with many Italian artists.
Знал многих деятелей культуры, писателей.
It is not by accident that Bazhan became compiler of the collection called Michelangelo that was published on the occasion of the anniversary of the birth of the Italian genius. Bazhan translated his poems and collected photos of his sculptures. At the Bazhan Kiev Memorial Museum, you can see a lot of photos of his trips to different countries, to England and Italy. His letters, fragments of its brilliant translations, and photo albums signed by outstanding figures of world culture.
Когда мы говорили о гостях, которые здесь бывали, то бывали здесь и художники, вот именно итальянские.
Among visitors of our museum, there are also Italian artists. You can see here the album of Renato Guttuso.
При содействии Mykoly Bazhana, как вице-президента Европейского сообщества писателей.
In 1961, Bazhan, as deputy director of the European Writers' Union, organized an exhibition of Guttuso's work in Moscow. Guttuso came to Kiev to visit Bazhan's apartment on his way back home from Moscow, and he left this album as a sign of Bazhan's friendship with Italian artists. This demonstrated the strong ties of friendship between Bazhan and Italian culture representatives. Many people think Bazhan is an old Soviet classic writer, but if to look closer, we see that his life and creative activity were full of trials and dramatic events. And it will be more correct to take him now not as a classic, but an intellectual, self-educated artist of world level. There was even the idea of nominating him for the Nobel Prize. He refused from the proposal of the Harvard University to be nominated for this prize. We do not know what was behind his refusal. Most probably, it was an internal conflict issue of the poet and the authorities. But this fact is yet another proof of the significance of Bazhan's works that are worthy of being remembered by the new generation to come. I will always feel I have not done all I could. I'm thankful to the people of my country for everything I have received from them. I wish my craving for life, work, new discoveries and travels will never end and live on.
На мітингу виступив відомий український поет, заступник голови Раднаркому України Mykola Bazhan.
Mykola Bazhan did a lot before he became deputy chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Ukrainian SSR. His works, created over the period of 1920-1930, became a golden font of Ukrainian literature. He truly deserved to be awarded the Nobel Prize for his works and contribution to world literature.